Hi, in this video we're going to continue with the assessments for ICT NWK 401 Installer Manager Server. We're looking at the first assessment, and I'll just hit the save on the downloads and I'll open it up. Enable editing. And in this one we have already done section 4. So if I whiz down here, we've got the 3 answer booklets: role play, and section 4 was the practical install using answer booklet 1. Okay, and so we've installed the servers, done the partitioning and all that sort of stuff, done the memory diagnostics, the Windows troubleshooting. We've installed and configured Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So that was 2. 3 was the Windows install, and we did the memory diagnostics. And we've also done the SQL Server install and taken the pictures of all of that. And now we're currently up to part 5, which is to look at answer booklet 2. Okay, so let's open up answer booklet 2. I've got that on a local drive. Cert 4, networking, install and manage a server, answer booklet 2, it's the skills, first assessment, answer booklet 2. Why is it open a read-only copy? Or if I've already got a copy open, that's why. Okay, so here it is. Here's answer booklet 2, and which is what we have to do in part 5. So part 5 is answer booklet 2, and part 6 is answer booklet 3. This one here. Okay, so this is all about completing section 5, or part 5 of this first skills assessment. Okay, so we'll need both of these documents. I'll just put them together like that, and we want section 5. Here's section 5. So section 5, we're going to install the network directory services on the server 2016 according to the specification. So we'll open up our there is a new version, we'll get to that some other time. So I'm going to open up the firewall, the main server, the backup server, the router, and the Windows 10. We don't need the Red Hat at the moment, so we'll just open up all of these. And we're going to install Active Directory services on our Windows Server 2016. Is the first thing. That's the main server and the backup server. This is our firewall that's running. Here's our router. Running. And here's our Windows 10 machine. So let's go to our main server. Log into it. So these routers, we can just minimize these things out of the road for the moment. So the first thing to do is install and configure directory services on the Windows Server 2016, which is what this thing is. So to do that, we go to Add Roles and Features, and we'll skip that by default and go Next, Next, And what we want is the Active Directory domain services, that thing there. We'll add all the features that it reckons we need. Go next, next, next install. Updates. I don't want updates. Can I Alt Tab away from that? Those updates are a nuisance. I should turn the update service off completely, although we may need it later on in here to show that we've done updates, so we'll leave it running for the moment. So the installation has started. Okay, so that configuration has, configuration is required. The installation has succeeded. I've still got this update thing running in the background. I don't want to run that at the moment, so I'm going to kill it. Okay, so if we look at the notifications here, we'll see that we need to promote this server to being a domain controller. And this is going to be a brand new domain, the first domain in the entire forest. So it's going to add a new forest. Just select your initials, .local, next. We have to wait until this thing's ready. But it's going to put the forest and domain functional levels at server 2016, which is what this server is, which means the only other servers that are allowed in this domain will be at least server 2016 or up. We can see here the domain name server is going to create one. We could untick it, but we want to actually create a DNS server. The global catalog server, which authenticates people into the domain, on the first domain controller in the domain within the forest, is always ticked and grayed out because you can't change it. So we just put a new password in here and hit next. It gives us the warning about it can't find a DNS, but we don't mind because we're going to create a DNS server on this machine anyway. So here it looks for the NetBIOS name, which is just the short version of the domain name. It's non-routable, which means it can't go past a router. So it only works within that particular subnet. Otherwise you have to put the fully qualified domain name, which is bmw.local. Next. Okay, I don't mess with the standard Active Directory database locations. There's a lot of other programs that sort of look for them there, so best to leave them in the default locations. So next. Just a summary. You can view the script that you would do to do all of this via the PowerShell script if you want. But we're just going to go next because we're using the GUI. So this will come up, it's doing the prerequisites check, and what it'll do is it'll find 2 warnings and but give us a green tick to go ahead anyway. So there's the green tick, and there's the couple of warnings. So if we just scroll down there, you can see that the prerequisites completed and all passed successfully, so go install to continue. So it comes up with the first warning and says, okay, we've got a weak security setting for allowing cryptography algorithms that are compatible with Windows NT4, so really ancient. And there's the one about the DNS server that it couldn't find, but we're creating our own DNS server, so it won't matter. Okay, so we can see that it's finished, and it's going to sign out and restart the machine. Yep, restarting. This will now be a domain controller with a DNS server. So looking at our answer booklet, which is here, all of this stuff happens beforehand. The first time we have to put anything in the answer booklet is creating a new administrative user and put a screen capture there. So that's sort of like 2A. Okay, so it's finished rebooting. And it's going to log in as the domain administrator. Okay, so part 2A here, they had whatever local domain. I just use my initials, it doesn't matter, as long as you can make a domain. So we're going to create a new user account with administrative settings. Okay. Again, the account name doesn't really matter, so I could just call it Martin or whatever the name, doesn't matter. Okay. So it'll start up with a system manager, slowly. I hope this thing's not doing updates in the background. I was just about to go to the task manager and find out what's going on as far as the processor sitting at near 100%. Why? Okay, processors. It's installing stuff. Windows Modules Installer. And okay, it's all about still starting up. Okay, so what we need to do is to create an account with administrative settings. So we're going to go to Tools, Active Directory Users and Computers. Expand out our local domain, go to Users. Our built-in here, we've got a administrators group, this one here. So I need to create a user and stick them in this group here. So in the users, right mouse click, new user. Martin. You can call it whatever name you feel like. Login's going to be Martin. Now normally you change the password at the next logon, but for this situation here, password never expires is quite fine. So create a user account with administrative settings. So I don't need to take a snapshot of this. I need to take a snapshot of it in the administrative settings. So we'll finish that. And then that user I want to add to a group. And I want to add them to the administrators group. So if you look at the groups, there's the administrators group there. Now you can see the user Martin was added to the group operation, but you can't see which group operation it was. So you can see that Martin was added to a group. So what we're going to do is, well, we could just show the groups that Martin belongs to and take a screenshot of that. So member of, and you can see that that Martin's properties, he's now an administrator of the domain. So Control E, we'll take a picture of that and stick it in the VirtualBox directory. And what I'll do is I'll add that into mention your administrative user logon. So I'm going to go insert picture from this device, and I'm going to go to drive C, VMs. It was the not this one, it's the certificate 4, my apologies. It's the main server. So it's that last one that we just took. And that shows the user logon and the fact that he's now a member of the administrators group. Okay, so in here we're going to create a group, a user account, and add a user to a group. And in this is part B. It's actually an organizational unit configuration. So we need to create a new organizational unit and do the following: create a new group, user, and add the user to the group. Okay, so back to our server. And to create a new organizational, you just click on the domain, right mouse click on it, and go new, and then you go organizational unit. So we're going to call this ROI, I think it was ROI 01 or something like that. You can call it whatever you like, really. A lot of cases, organizational units are generally created in order to help manage the structure of the organization you're in. So they're often used as like different departments. So you'd create an organizational unit for each department, and you'd put users and groups in each of those departments, or geographical locations. So it might have a head office and multiple branch offices. So, you know, Wollongong head office, you know, Tokyo, London, New York, all branch offices. And so I'd create an organizational unit for those, and then I could delegate the administrative control of that organizational unit to an admin that's been trained up that's actually over there in that particular site. So I'll just call this one ROI01. That creates the organizational unit. And if you do a right mouse click, you can do a delegate control. So I can delegate control of that organizational unit to a particular person, like I mentioned, you know, different branch office. If there's a local admin at that branch office, then, you know, you might delegate control to that person so that they can manage that for you, manage that site for you. You can't do that with groups, even though you can embed groups within groups. You can't delegate control. You can have organizational units inside organizational units, but you can delegate the control, and that's the plus for that. Okay, so we want to create a new user and a new group in here. So I'm going to go new group. Okay, the group name's going to be let's go agents will do. That'll do. Domain local security group. And I'm going to create a new user. And the user's name, I'm going to go, you know, like U1, user1, user1, and the usual password. And again, I'm going to put the password never expires, this particular case. And so I've created a new user account and a new group. And what I want to do is within this organizational unit, so Control E to send that page to there, and I also want to put within this group properties. If I look at the members of this group, there's no one in there. I'm going to add in U1. So now I've added in U1. So this is probably a better picture. So I've added the user into the agents group within, come back, where are you? Okay, properties. I want to see that, and now I'm going to go Control E. That's a better picture. And so in here, let's create the new group, the new user, and add the user. So that this one screenshot covers all of that. Insert picture, device, get that last picture. So there's the user that's been created. He's in the group agents in the organizational unit that I've created. And we can just sort of change the size of that. Cut that. For some reason I've got it actually in the wrong spot. So let's go Control V there, put it there. Can't change it, the size. Yep, I can. Okay, so we're now up to the next section, which is Section 3, configure shared print services using the print services specifications provided. Print services on the configure the server 2013 for drive redundancy. Okay, so let's do the printer shared services. So we can see we want two printers, permissions, shared printer properties, and printer pooling. Okay, so first thing we've got to do in our server here is to add roles and features. Next. We need to go to print and document services. Add features and go next. Next, and we want the print server is what we want. Next, and install. Okay, so we can see that the installation has succeeded for the print manager. If we go to the tools, we can see a print management console in here. Okay, so what we want to do is install some printers. So there's our main server. Here's some printers. Well, there isn't any really as yet. Okay, so what we want to do is get hold of some printer drivers, and on if I go to the unit guides and go to the OneDrive resources, you'll see in the software here we have some printer drivers. Okay, so I've got a HP Color LaserJet and a Lexmark driver. So what we want to do is get these things into our virtual machine and install a couple of printers. These two will do, and the drivers are up there. So in here you'll find that's an executable, and this will be an executable as well, I think. Yeah, it's an executable as well. Okay, so we just need to get both of those into the virtual machine. Okay, so first of all, download them onto your machine. I've got those on my local drive, and it's just a matter of getting them into the virtual machine. So here's the virtual machine. I'm going to try this way. So devices, shared folder. and I'm going to create or add a shared folder, and I'm going to set the folder path as other, and then I'm going to go and find it. So in my case, that's on this drive, and I'm going to go to the OneDrive, the resources, the software, and here are the printer drivers. So what I want to do is I want to go to select this software folder. That'll do. And I want to make it read only. I don't want to auto mount it every time the machine restarts, and I don't want to make it permanent. When checked, the guest operating system will try to automatically mount the shared folder on startup. No, we just want to do it just this one time. Okay, so what I'm looking for now is to see whether on my file explorer, come on, I've got how many copies of it open now? 2. Okay, it was just taking its time. So I'm going to look on my network to see whether that shared folder has worked. We've got a lot of activity happening down here. Okay, so you can see this VBox server. So if I expand that, you'll see the software folder that I just added. Come on. Okay, so there's my print drivers. I want to copy that folder. This is so slow at the moment. I have a feeling that since I installed the SQL on this machine, that it's starved for memory and it's slowing the whole thing right down. Anyway, I'm going to copy that and I'll put it on my drive C. I might actually put it on the desktop. And paste it there. Okay, so that's on our local machine. So I no longer need the shared folder. So I'm going to go to Devices, Shared Folders, Settings, and I can take this one and now kill it. Removes the shared folder. Okay. Now the alternative way of doing that is opening up a browser and then just dragging it from the desktop of the host machine to the desktop of the guest machine, and that will often work as well. That depends on the fact that in the options here, not so much the options in the, I think it's the drag and drop. So that's the print manager devices. In the drag and drop, we've got, I see it's all disabled. If it was bi-directional, then you'd be able to actually, you might be able to click this thing here and then drag it from the desktop. So the shared folders was the way for us to do it in this particular case. Anyway, so on the desktop, the important thing is that I've got those drivers now. So if I go to the desktop, there's the printer drivers. So I'm going to do the color jet. Now this should extract the files. So I just want to unzip it. Overwrite files without prompting. Where's it going to put it? Okay, we want to put this on the PC, in drive C, create a new folder, call it drivers, and we want to make a new folder in that. Make a new folder inside that and call it HP. Okay, so that's where we want to put it. We want to unzip it to there. Okay. So I want to do the Lexmark one, and I'm going to unzip those. Oh, it's just going to do it. Doesn't give you the option. Of course, you have to read it and accept it. Extract the driver file to the location specified. Browse. I want that on this PC, on drive C, in the drivers. And we'll go bang there. Extract. Okay. So it looks like it's trying to add a printer. I'm going to kill this, and I've extracted it. I'm going to add a local printer or a network printer with manual settings. Okay. So let's cancel that, because the main thing is I've just extracted all the files. So I'm going to go back to desktop, go back to this PC, to drive C, drivers, and I've got the Lexmark drivers all in here. Drivers, print, GDI, blah blah blah, they're all there somewhere. A lot of directories. The HP one has got the drivers all much easier to get at, which is good, and they've also got an install program there as well. .4, AMD 64, WinXP. Wow, that's going way back. So it'll have the different types of drivers in here, 64-bit, whatever's, yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do, that's the HP one. We install HP Universal Printing Driver before. Okay, so we're going to go no. These were the automatic programs that were running based on the fact that we had just, so here's our print manager. We want to go back to our print manager and add a new printer in here. We want to add a printer, and we're going to add a printer that's going to print to an existing port, and I want to print to a file. Next, I want to install a new driver, and I'm going to go, I have a disk, and I want to browse for it, and I want to go to this PC, drive C, drivers, HP, and I'm just going to go copy from this area. So going to go OK. So we can see the printer drivers that we can that it's got. We want this version 7 printing driver. It's digitally signed, so we can just go bang. Okay, so here the printer name, I'm just going to call this the HP LaserJet 2500. That's the one that we're after. And we've got a location, so it might be, you know, building building J, floor 4 or something like that. And you know, this might be, you know, the main printer for accounts or something like that. Okay, so you'd label all that sort of stuff when you're putting it in. The share name here, I'd probably change the name so it doesn't, it's not that big long thing. So I might go HP LaserJet 2500. So that's the share name. HP LaserJet 2500. That way it's a nice easy share when we're trying to connect to it. We're going to go next. But it's going to print to a file. The port type's going to print to a file. So it's not going to print to an actual printer. So we've just installed the driver. So it's a printer, print driver, but it actually only prints to a file. Okay, so you can see we've finished. We could print a test page or add another printer. I want to add another printer. I'm going to have it print to a file as well. Install a new driver. But this is not going to be a HP one. I'm going to have a disk. Browse up from the HP drivers to the Lexmark driver. I'm trying to find got no idea what that one is. That's probably their universal Lexmark universal driver. So let's go open and go OK. Yep, universal driver. I'm going to go, that's a digitally signed certificate, so that's good. So we're going to go Lexmark MS 510 DN driver. That's the printer name, and we're going to make the share name the same. Control V. Location is you know, different building. Helps if you can spell. Building D, floor 2. This is I'm going to go security. Printer. Something like that. Okay, so we've now got 2 printers installed, and what we need to do is we can do things like set what the default printer is and all that sort of thing. So I think I figured out why this thing is so slow. When we installed the SQL server in Answer Booklet 1, this machine probably only has 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. Let's go system. Yeah, look at it, it's only got 1.5 gigabytes of RAM. So what's happening is when I installed the SQL server, this thing is maxing out the amount of memory, and therefore everything's very slow, because what it's doing is it's using virtual memory, swapping things out to disk, and disk is slow. Okay, so what we could do is shut this thing down, increase the amount of memory, and start it back up again. Probably a good idea just for this machine that's running the SQL server. Probably not necessary for anything else that we're running. Okay, we'll go finish now. So here we can see the HP LaserJet 2500 and the Lexmark MS510DN. Okay, and they're on this server, and what I'm going to do is if I open that one, can I open it? Open the printer queue. Yep, I want to open the printer queue, and under the printer I can set this as the default printer. So I'm going to go can I go Control E? Yep. So that's the LaserJet as the default printer. And I can show that both of these are here, that we've installed the 2, and I'll show the Lexmark printer driver as well. So can I make that smaller? Probably not. Okay, but I really want to show people that that's there. Okay, so let's go Control E and capture that. That shows that we've got both of them, and in here we can print a test page which will print to a file, and we can set preferences and configuration and all that sort of stuff. So let's go OK on that. Now, one of the other things that because we're using the print server is that we can publish these things to Active Directory. So what I would do is I'd list it in the directory, and I'd list that one in the directory as well. So that's now published in Active Directory. We can also deploy access to this printer, this shared printer, via a group policy to all of our clients. Okay, so we could do that as well. Okay, so what do I want to show here? So we can see it's in directory and we could deploy. So I'm going to go Control E and save that as well. Okay, so that's showing that we can remove it from directory because it's actually in Active Directory, and we could deploy it as well. I think that's all we need to show here. Shared printer services, print services in the answer booklet provided. So in the answer booklet here is printer permission assignment, shared printer properties, and printer pooling. Okay, so we haven't done the permissions or anything like that yet. So back to our machine. Okay, We can see here that none of these printers are deployed yet, but if we did deploy them, they'd pop up in here. All printer drivers. Okay. We could manage the sharing. Okay, so that's what we're after, the sharing. Okay, so we can share this printer. We can rent print jobs on the client computers. We've got it listed in directory. We can add additional drivers for people who've got different operating systems. So we'll go back to sharing in a minute. That tells where it is, preferences, printer page, ports. It's at the file, advanced. We can print or we can pool. So here we've got spooling print documents so the program finishes printing faster. So it starts printing immediately, but keeps a copy of it on the local machine. So you can, the computer will print as fast as it can, and that will be faster than the printer can actually print it. So the printer will start printing, but the rest of it will be saved onto disk and fed out from the print manager to the printer as it needs it. So what it acts as a big buffer. So we can print as fast as we like, and it's buffered or cached on the print manager, and that's what spooling the document means. It's sort of that it's cached. Device settings. Here we can change whether it's using A4, what trays it's using, whether the duplex unit's installed or not, whether the stapling unit's installed or not. There's all sorts of stuff that we can do, punch unit. We can set, so you have to type in a PIN to print. It's a security thing. And the storage device here is not installed, so you can actually put a hard drive in the printer that acts as the cache, and that way we can print lots of things to it, and it'll be stored on the hard drive in the printer to be printed as fast as it can. But it's the cache is actually stored on a hard drive in the printer. So that's not actually installed, so it's not there, but the facility's there in the drivers and everything like that. Okay. So do we really want to show that sort of stuff? That we've got access to all of that sort of stuff? Probably not. I do want to go back to the sharing. And on the advanced we had the spooling. So you can keep a cache of printed documents as well. Printing defaults, print processor, separated pages. Okay, so I'm just going to go screen capture for that as well. Control E. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add these things into here. Print screenshots below. So what we'll do is we'll go insert pictures, this device. Gee, I can't remember which one it is. Looks like about that one. Insert. We can always move it if I don't like it. Okay, so this one's the HP. It's set as a default printer. So that looks pretty good. We can make that sort of like half the page and then put the next one in. So insert picture device. I was up to that one. It's this one now. So this will be the Lexmark. Okay. So let's just see what the next couple are like, and then we'll move them in to where they need to be. Okay, so let's go insert pictures device. Okay, make that a bit smaller, and we'll go enter and insert the last one. Okay, so we've got the shared printer properties. It's basically in these two. So what I want to do is cut that and put it down into shared printer properties. Control V. This spooler one I want to put into cut that, stick it in this part here, Control V. So I know this is the Lexmark one, but it shows the printer properties. You can see it says properties there. And we've got the same sort of properties up here on the HP one. Sorry, this one here, the HP one. But we also setting as default and a few extra things like that. So that's sort of like configuration. This one was about the fact that it's been put into Active Directory and we could deploy it via a group policy. So I'm just going to leave that one. The thing that we haven't got is the permissions. Okay, so back to our server. Security. Okay, so in here I might remove everyone and add in, for example, let's go advanced and find now all the different groups. So didn't we have a agents group? So there's my agents group. And these agents, we're going to have them able manage. Well, we could have them so they could manage the printer or just be able to print to the printer. Do we want to have a look at advanced management? Okay, inherited, auditing, effective access. Okay, so we'll just put that agents can print to this printer. So that's what we want to see here. Control E, save it, and we're going to put that in the screenshot here. So let's go insert picture device, get the last one, insert it, and make it a bit smaller. Okay. So that shows permissions that we've given the ability to print to this printer to that group. Okay, so that's the sort of printer permissions assignment that we need. I think that covers everything there. So now we're looking at hard drive connected to the machine, RAID 5, virtual memory allocation, disk quotas, and distributed file systems. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some drives to both the servers. and we'll look at distributed file systems and disk management quotas shortly as well. So let's have a look here. Connect the required number of drives to the server, configure the disk partitioning and file systems, allocate the recommended amount, new volumes, document that, create a directory structure, configure disk quotas, add a disk quota entry for the test user, create a directory structure, share the folders with the correct group and permissions, and install a DFS namespace role. Create the directory structure using DFS management where namespaces are associated with the correct folder targets. So we've got document the evidence under section 4 with disk quota management and DFS configuration of the answer booklet provided. Okay, so this part we're looking at directories, disks and RAIDs and stuff like that. So let's go to our servers. So here's our backup server. I'm going to shut this down and add some more drives to it. So let's go. This thing's a lot more responsive because it's got plenty of memory because it's got nothing installed on it. Okay, now I figured out why everything's so slow. So let's just shut this down for the moment. Shut down, continue. Now it's not really a server yet, but it's going to be. And my main server, this one, we've done printers. We'll be able to speed this thing up a lot by adding more memory to it as when we shut it down. Come on. Okay, so close that, close that. We can close all that. And let's go shut down. Okay, so back to our thing here. We've got these two servers. So our backup server, we're going to add 2 drives to it and 2 drives to the main server. And we're going to, well, actually we might have to add 3 drives to the main server because it says a RAID 5. We'll just do a mirrored RAID on the backup server. So we'll do 2 different types. Okay, so on the main server, in the settings, first thing we're going to do is we're going to up the memory. So let's give this thing 4 gigabytes of memory. That'll do. That'll keep it a bit happier, hopefully. We don't need a floppy disk either. Processor, let's give it a couple more processors as well. 4. Okay. So on the storage, we want to add in another disk. And we don't need the SQL Server disk in there anymore either. So let's remove that disk. So let's, on the controller, let's add another, let's create another disk. If we go add, no, we need to create. Let's create a VDI disk, dynamically allocated. Default size, main server 1. It's going to put it in the main server area. So we'll go create. And we're going to go create VDI main server 2. And we're going to go create main server 3. So that's the 3 50 gig drives. And we're going to choose that drive. We're going to add in number 2, and we're going to add in number 3. So these will be now attached. Okay, so on our backup server, we want to add in 2 drives. We can take out the guest editions as well. So on the, let's just check the settings on this one. System, it's already got 4 gigabytes of memory. It's got plenty. So the main server, poor thing, was suffering big time. Processors, it's got 2, that's fine. Acceleration's all turned on. Okay, storage. So we can take that CD-ROM out. Let's remove the disk. And on the controller, we're going to add in 2, we're going to create 2 drives. VDI, dynamically allocated. So this is a backup server 1, 50 gigabytes. And we'll let us create a second one as well. Okay, so we're going to choose the first disk, that one. And we'll add the second disk in as well. So there's the 2 disks, and we'll go OK. Now these disks don't actually take any space. We've got like 50 gigabytes on these, but if you have a look at the actual size of the drive, they're only 2 megabytes. They can go up to 50 gigabytes, but if we've got no data on them, then they don't occupy any space at all, or 2 megabytes, which is nothing really. Okay, so the size of these drives here doesn't really matter. You can make them 2 terabytes, and they're only, they'll only be 16 megabytes or something like that here with no data on them. So okay, so now we start these machines back up again. This one here is a domain controller. This one hasn't joined the domain yet. So we're going to join this one and Windows 10 to the domain at some point as well. So let's start that one. This thing should operate a bit better now. It's got more processors and more RAM. So poor little thing. Only 1.5 gigabytes of RAM and one core processor. No wonder it was slow. So while that's starting up, let's start this one up as well. So this is all about the hard drive redundancy. So let's go back to our main server. And we can see our backup server going in the background there. So while this machine was down, we did a little hardware upgrade on it. So while these things are still starting, oh no, they've finished starting up, so that's good. Log into the domain. And on our backup server, it's logging into the local machine, but we're going to get it to join the domain very shortly. So here's our main server. We're up and running quite a bit faster than last time. What we need to do is add those drives in because we want the hard drive redundancy. So if you do a right mouse click on the start button down there and go disk management, it's going to automatically find the 3 disks. There they are. We want them to be master boot record style disks. So it finds them. I'm just going to whiz this up a little bit so we can see it. So there's our 3 drives. And so what we want to do is we want to go a new RAID 5 volume. We're going to go next, and it says select the other disks and add them in. So now we've got our 3 disks. Those 3 disks are going to make a single drive, okay, with a striped parity drive RAID system. Next. Give them drive R for RAID or something like that. New volume label, I'm going to call them RAID 5. There we go. Perform a quick format and go next. So on our backup server, we're going to do the same thing. Right mouse click, go to our disk management. It picks up the 2 drives. We want them to be MBRs. So it finds those disks, they're unallocated. Right mouse click on here, we want a new mirrored volume. So we're going to go next. I'm just going to go back, cancel, right mouse click. You'll notice RAID 5 is not available. That's because I don't have 3 drives. I need 3 drives to do a RAID 5. So it only shows you what you can actually do with the number of drives you've got. Let's add that second drive in. I'm going to call this M for mirror. Mirror. Perform a quick format. Okay, so that's the that's all this stuff about doing RAID and all that sort of stuff. So what we can do is take a picture of that sort of stuff. So what we've done here is a RAID 5, do a Control-E and save that, and back into our document here. Additional hard drives connected to the server. So I'm just going to go insert, picture, device, pick the last one and make it a little bit smaller, like that. Actually, we might stick that one here and put the other one, the other mirrored RAID, to the other one. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go to our backup server, which is that one, and we'll do a Control-E on that, just to show that we've got so back in here, let's go insert, pictures, device. Let's go to the backup server and get the last one. Okay, so we've added additional drives to the server and we've mirrored them. Here's a RAID 5 configuration, so we've got that. So now it's just a virtual memory setup. Okay, so it doesn't matter which server we use to do that with. I'm going to actually pick say the backup server will do. Okay. Yep. Okay, so on our backup server, I'm just going to go into the File Manager, right mouse click on this PC, down to Properties, and then we click on the Advanced System Settings, and in here we want to look at memory usage or virtual memory. So Settings tab, go to the Advanced, and we want to look at the virtual memory. At the moment it's currently 1.4 gigabytes, and it's automatic. So we want to untick that, and I want a custom size, and I might go, this is in megabytes, I might go 512 initial and 512 maximum. And I can hit the set button there, and the next time the machine restarts, it will switch the default memory size to that. Now, can we see what that actually looks like? So if I just go back to here, on this PC, drive C, what we need to do is find all the hidden files. So what we do is go to View, Options, and on the View tab, what we do is we show all the hidden files. We untick all these hide things, and the operating system files is the one that we're really after. We're going to go Apply and OK, and now you'll see the hidden directories, but you'll also see this page file. This page file is our virtual memory, okay? And so we're going to change this from 1.4 gigabytes down to 512 megabytes, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that here, and I'm going to see if I can put that, okay, I want to see both. Okay, so to see both, I might have to change the page file. What I'll do is I'll change the folder so I can see it like that, and then when I've got this I can actually see both. So I can see that currently the page file is set to 1.4, but I'm knocking it back to 512 when I hit the set button. So I'm going to go Control E, and I'm going to save that. Now I'm not actually going to do it, but that's how you would do it, okay? So the interesting thing is the main server had to do a lot of swapping out to disk because it only had 1.5 gigabytes of memory, and that's why it was so slow earlier on. So it'd be interesting to see what size this thing actually is on it. For the moment, we don't actually care. Let's kill all of that and that, and let's go back to here. We want the virtual memory screenshot below. So we go Insert Picture, Device, and it was that one there. And that shows the virtual memory allocation that was on the server manager for that. Okay, like I said, the other one was interesting, so I'm just going to have a quick look at that. Okay, so let's flick back to the main server, and I want to have a look in here at drive C. Can't see anything. View, Options, View, unhide everything, including the protected operating system files, which is the page file. And I can see that it's 1.4 gigabytes, okay? So it's the 1.4 gigabytes as well. That's interesting. I thought that it might have changed size, but I suppose if the reason it was so slow was swapping out to this 1.4 gigabyte file size, then that would have slowed the whole thing down because memory was actually being put out to disk here. Interesting, it didn't make it any bigger, but it was only it was only 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, so it was basically had another 1.5 gigabytes nearly on disk to effectively double the amount of space it had to work with. Interesting. Okay, so the next section in here is disk quota management and distributed file systems. Okay, so what we want to do at the moment is we're going to add the other computers to the domain. So here's our main server, here's our backup server, and what I want to do is add this to the domain. Now the domain is called main server, but the name of this machine is an awkward name, okay? So what we're going to do is click on that hyperlink, and we're going to change it. We're going to change the name to backup server, and we're going to click on the domain. We want it to join the BMW domain. Well, will it do that? Let's have a look at its IP address. If its DNS setting isn't set correctly, it will not join it. Let's go Ethernet and show the adapter options. Look at the IP address, version 4. Okay, it's getting an IP address automatically. So what is its IP address? IP config/all. It's 3.101. This thing should be getting an IP address 3.3 actually is what it should be. It should be a static IP address. Our main server is 3.2. There it is. It's a static, but we obviously haven't done anything to this. So let's change the adapter options. Let's actually tell this that it's going to be 192.168.3.3. Subnet mask is that. The gateway is 3.1, 192.168.3.1, and this is based on the, I can show you the picture. So if we just go to search for network installation, there's the logical network diagram. So it's based on this diagram here. So 3.2, 192.168.3.2 is the server, 3.3 is the backup server, and the Windows 10 is going to get a dynamic IP address wherever. So that's fine. But the backup server needs to be a set IP address. All servers need to be a set IP address. So do all printers. So do all routers. Now all infrastructure needs to be set IP addresses. The Windows 10 machine, the desktops and the laptops, they can be variable. Depends who logs in and when they log in as to what IP address they get. That's fine. Okay, so that's the 3.3, gateway 3.1. Preferred DNS server is going to be the domain DNS server, which is our main server. So that's 192.168.3.2 is the IP address for that. Close. Close. I'm glad I checked that before we tried doing anything. So let's do a IP config/all. We can see 3.3, gateway 3.1, DNS server 3.2. Good. Everything that we expect. So now when I hit OK on this, it will actually look at the DNS server, which is 3.2, which is the domain controller, find it as a domain and a DNS and everything like that, and we'll join the domain. If we hadn't done that, it would have failed at this particular point. So we type in administrator and the usual password. It'll join the domain and then do a reboot. Waiting, waiting, waiting. Now our Windows 10 machine, which is over here, let's have a look at let's finish setting up your device. Remind me in 3 days. Okay. What's its IP address? IP config/all. Okay, so it's 103.2 DHCP. its DNS server is 3.2, so it's already pointed in the correct direction. So this thing will find the domain and join it, which is good. So if I have a look at the right mouse click properties, okay, it goes here. I want to rename this PC advanced, that one, that's the one we want. Okay, so here you can see we've got the awkward name. So I want to change that. This thing's going to be called Windows 10, and it's going to be a member of the domain BMW. Now this will fail because BMW is a NetBIOS name. It's not the fully qualified domain name, and it doesn't go past routers. And we've got a router in between this and the domain controller. So this will fail. Even though everything else is set up perfectly, it fails. Because we need to have bmw.local in order for this to work. Because it's not in the same subnet. If it's in the same subnet, you can just use BMW, which is the NetBIOS version of the domain name. So this will now work. Yep. And let's go OK on that. Welcome to the domain. Yes, we want to restart. Yes, restart. Yep. Our backup server should have wanted to restart as well. Okay, so let it restart. And those things, because we changed the name, will also have the new name as well. So back on our main server, if we have a look in the Active Directory users and computers, yes, we've got the new users, and we've got I think we've got Martin in here. Yeah, he's the new administrator. We've got a organizational unit in here. On the domain controllers, we've got our main server. Our computers now show the backup server in the Windows 10 machine. Okay, and also in DNS we'll see this as well. So tools down to DNS. Man, this is a lot more responsive than earlier in this. On the main server, in the forward lookup zone in the domain, we can see Windows 10's IP address 103.2. The main server and the backup server are all in there as well. Now, these things don't get in there until the thing's actually booted up and got an IP address. Now, our main server is a static IP address, and you can see it says static, but the 103 isn't. Okay. Actually, the main server is static. The backup server is also a static IP address as well. Yeah, whatever. They're in there. That's the main thing. They're all members of the domain. Now, we could actually promote the backup domain controller, backup server to being a domain controller as well. I don't think we need to do that at the moment. What we need to do is disk quotas and need to create a directory structure and install the DFS namespace. Okay. So back onto our RAID 5 drive. Okay. So this is where we're going to start looking at putting in directory structures and giving permissions to different users and that sort of thing. Okay, so let's just make sure that on here, okay, we're up to disk quotas, then directory structure information, then folder redirection, unauthorized access prevention, and other GPO configurations. And then user environment testing, diagnose server problems, analyze, and then we're finished. Okay, so some of those things It's just tick the box, was the user able to access and share the drive, and so whatever user that we've got in there. Okay, so okay, so let's go back to our main server. Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. Okay, we're going to open up the file manager and go to our RAID. So on our RAID drive, we're going to go to the properties of this RAID drive, and I'm going to go to the quota tab, and I'm going to enable quota management, and I'm going to deny disk space to users exceeding the quota limit. Okay. And log events when a user exceeds their quota limit and when they exceed their warning limit. Okay, so quota entries. Administrators, they don't have a limit. We can put a limit on them, but at the moment they don't have a limit. So I'm going to put a new quota entry in, and I'm going to go advanced and find now the agents group. So I want I'm going to give Martin a quota. So this was in the users. Yep. So this is just a single person, okay? And limit the disk space to say 10 gigabytes, okay? Set the warning at I can set the warning fairly early. Let's put this at I don't know, something like 10 megabytes or something like that. So we go 10 megabytes. Okay, it's pretty early. Okay. So 10 gigabytes, warning levels at 10 megabytes. Martin hasn't used anything. I'm going to add a new user, object type users. Okay. So what I want is locations from the organizational unit. Advanced, find now. So I've got U1. I actually want the entire group because at the moment this is only users. It's not showing groups. Doesn't matter, we'll just add the user in. Okay. So cancel. Can I go agents? Check names. No, you see object types because it's only looking at users. Okay, so let's go U1. U1's a user. Check the name. Okay, so U1 limit space to, this guy's going to have next to nothing. So let's limit his space to like let's go 10 megabytes. I'm just thinking of the wallpapers. So we'll have a look at the wallpapers that we've got in our OneDrive, VM resources, wallpapers. Now these things are, let's have a look at the view and change that to details. These things are like 159 kilobytes, and some of these things are like a megabyte. So what I'm going to do is maybe go a megabyte, and then 512 kilobytes will be the warning. Okay, so limit disk space to 2 megabytes. So 2 megabytes, which is not much. Set the warning level to 1 megabyte. So as soon as I exceed 1 megabyte, it's going to give a warning. Okay. So U1's got a different quota to what I've got. Now what we want to do is properties. Okay. So I'm going to look at the properties. I'm going to set that so that we can see it. And take a screenshot. Control E. Yeah, that was on the main server. Yes, good. So here, this quotas configuration, we're going to insert a picture of this device. Go to the main server and pick up the last one, which was the quota one. Yep, that's the quotas. Okay, so that's pretty obvious. Directory structure. So we're going to put in different levels of access depending on who you are. And I'm going to put 2 folders in on the server. So I'll go OK on that and quota close. And go. Should enable the quota system only if you intend to use quotas on this disk volume. When you enable a quota system volume, will be rescanned to update the disk. It might take several minutes. Okay, let's go OK. So on here we want to create a new folder called wallpapers. And I'm going to create a new folder called the profiles. Ooh, no, not on here. I want the profiles actually on a different folder. We might do that when we do the wallpapers. We might actually have, we might put those in a DFS eventually. Yeah, we'll see what happens. So we won't put a profiles here. We'll put a profiles. Let's delete that. So back on drive C, I'm going to create a new folder called profiles. Because we're going to redirect the profiles to this directory here. There's a couple of different ways we can do that. This thing needs to be a share. So I'm going to look at its properties and I'm going to go sharing, and it's going to be advanced sharing, and I'm going to share the folder and call it profiles, and here we set the permissions. Well, we get rid of everyone who has got read, so we remove everyone. We're going to add in the administrators groups. So we want the entire group. Administrators are going to have full control. The everybody else is called anybody who's an authenticated user. So I want any authenticated user. I want them to have read and write to the profiles directory. Administrator's got full, authenticated user's got rewrite. Now, it's okay to have share level permissions like this, but we also need to have the NTFS or file level permissions set the same way, and that's on the security tab. And so what we do, first thing we do in any NTFS share like this, that I'm sharing out to the rest of my network, is I get rid of all of this stuff that's in here. You could just go edit and delete, but the easiest way to go is to go advanced settings, and you'll notice that all of this stuff that's in here is inherited from the root of drive C. So what we're going to do is disable inheritance, and we're going to remove all inherited permissions. So now there's nothing there. We want to continue, and we want to edit, and we want to add in the administrators group. Check the names. We want the administrators group to have full control, and we want to add in the authenticated users. To have up to modify level. Modify allows them to create their own directories and be an owner of a directory, but not to take ownership over anybody else's. So they can't take ownership over everybody else's. Full control allows you to take ownership over other people's folders. Yeah, you can be the owner creator with modify, but you can't take control over anybody else's files or folders. So if you're not the owner, you don't have permissions to access, which is handy for us. For profiles, so let's just check that just to make sure I've done that right. Yep. Sharing, advanced, permissions. Yep. Okay, that's good. So that's the profiles. We want to do a similar thing on our wallpapers folder here. Properties, sharing, advanced, share the folder, permissions. We want to remove everyone. We want to add in the administrators group, which includes Martin, if you remember, because Martin's going to be able to access, he's going to have full control. And everyone else, we're going to add authenticated users. They are going to have read only. They will not be able to change wallpapers, because having users being able to change wallpapers is not a good idea in a corporate environment. Goodness knows what sort of wallpapers people could get. Okay, we've done the sharing. We also need to do the file level permissions on here as well. We've got all these inherited permissions. We go to advanced, we disable inheritance, and we remove all inherited permissions. Well, the only one that's there is the administrators who've got full control, which is okay. So if we edit, the administrators are going to have full control, and we're going to add in the authenticated users, and they're going to have read only. So what they get is read and execute, list the folder contents, and read. They do not get write or anything like that. Now if you wanted to stop them from being able to list the contents of a folder, you could, or sorry, to execute any program that's in a folder, you could actually untick this one as well. Okay. You could actually untick this one. They would be able to view the contents of the folder, but they wouldn't be able to even read it. Like they wouldn't be able to open the file and have a look at the contents, let alone change anything and save it. So you could have it so they could only list the contents of the folder. So, but we want them to have full read and execute. So if we had a program in there, they could execute it. Okay. So that's the wallpapers. How do we get the wallpapers in there? Well, we're going to do that, and Martin will have no limits. because he's an administrator. Even though I've specifically put Martin in there in the quotas as having set limits, because he's a member of the administrators, he has no limits. So that's the confusing part. Which one applies? But U1 is not a member of the administrators group. He's just a user, and he will have the very limited quotas that I put on him. So that'll be interesting when he's trying to add files to another directory that I'm going to create here. So I'm going to go new folder. I'm just going to call it collaboration or something like that. Collaboration. Okay. So this one, I want people to be able to have, everybody to have read write to. So properties, sharing, advanced, share the folder, permissions, remove everyone, add in the administrators, check the name, give them full control, add in authenticated users, that's everyone else, give them read write so they can have read write. Yep. So that's the share permissions. So now let's do the NTFS permissions. So let's go, well, let's remove all the rubbish, go advanced, disable inheritance, and remove all inherited permissions. So the administrators are going to have full control, and we're going to add in authenticated users. There they are. And we're going to give them up to modify level. We could just have them have read write. Do they need modify? Yeah, we'll give them modify level, that's okay. So they can create files and stuff like that. Yep, okay. So, authenticate users, administrators, that's good. Close. So now we've got our share level permissions and our NTFS level permissions matching, and that's a good thing. Wallpapers, the average user's only got read. On collaboration, everybody's got read write. For the Drive C profiles directory, you've got read write because people will be creating their own folders in there when we redirect the profiles into that folder there. What we're going to do though is we're going to create a DFS, and we're going to share the folders that we've got on RAID 5 onto the mirrored drive that's on the backup server. Yeah, so we'll do that under the distributed file system under the DFS. Okay, so what do we have to show here? Directory structure configuration. Okay, so we probably should have showed some of the settings that we've got. We've got the quota settings, directory structures here. So back to our main server. So let's go wallpapers, properties, let's go security, and we can see authenticated users have got read, for example. And can I go on collaboration, properties, security, okay. So what I've got here is the wallpapers, authenticated users have got read, but on the collaboration folder they've got modify level. So this is for authenticated users on both of them. So let's go Control E, save it to the main server, yep. And back in here, let's go include in this screenshot, insert pictures, device, pick the last one, and insert. So this shows some of the settings that we've got there. We could actually put the administrators, well, we won't, we'll just go administrators got full access. We can just put that in, you know, administrators have full access, full permissions. Okay. So here we're showing authenticated users have read there and modify up to modify level there, and we've just said that administrators have full permissions for all folders. Okay. Okay, so we're up to folder redirection. Include a screenshot here. Procedure for configuring system policies and scripts is what we're looking for. So let's go to hard drive. We've done the quotas. We've added it for the test user. We've configured it, the limitations. We've created the directories, shared the folders with the correct groups and permissions. We haven't installed the namespace, so we need to do that next. And create the directory structure using the DFS management where the namespace is associated with the correct folder targets. Okay, so what we're going to do is create the same sorts of folders over on the backup server, and then we're going to put them in a namespace so that whenever we put a file in one, it automatically goes to the other. Okay, so let's go to the backup server. Actually, what we're going to do, we're going to leave it actually, because we want DFS to do it. Yes, we will. Let's go back to the main server. Main server, okay. So we can go okay on all of these. So this is our RAID 5. So what we want to do is go to DFS is not on here. So what we need to do is go to Active Directory, add roles and features. And go next, next. And in the file and storage options, in the file and iSCSI options in here, we want DFS namespaces and replication. Those two things there. Next. Come on. Next. Install. Now I'm going to install the same thing on the backup server, although I don't need to. If I wanted to have two servers in this so that I don't have a single point of failure, I would actually have it on two servers. That's why I would install it on another server as well. So I'm going to go you know, I would then have to promote this thing to being a domain controller and all that other sort of stuff. So I'm just going to do it all from the one server. It is a single point of failure, but they haven't asked for anything really fancy. Just install the namespaces role, which is what we're doing. So the DFS namespace and the replication. So create a directory structure using the DFS management. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Now the cool thing about DFS is that the directory structure doesn't relate to particular servers. It's a namespace that's created in Active Directory, and you can refer to it as / domain name / DFS namespace rather than going / server name / share. That's the difference. So we're referring to Active Directory and then the namespace rather than the server and the namespace. So that's a bit of difference. And you'll see how cool this will be very shortly. So I've now got that installed. If I have a look at the DFS management, we don't have any namespaces or anything like that as yet. So you can click on this. You can right mouse click and go new namespace, or you can click the one over here. It doesn't really matter. So the server, enter the name of the server that will host the namespace. It's going to be obviously main server. Browse, advanced, find now. It'll find all the servers. We're going to go main server. Next. What's the name of this namespace? Their example is public, which is pretty average sort of a name. Usually the namespaces are for used for all sorts of reasons, but most of the data that's in there doesn't change that often. So it's often like corporate policies and rubbish like that. Backups is a good one. So I might call it backups just for fun. Although that could be, I'm just going to go corporate data, corp data. That's probably the best way at the moment. I'm going to edit the settings of that. So at the moment, I'm going to have administrators have full access, other users have read and write permissions. Or I could use custom permissions and do the administrators and the, all that sort of stuff. So at the moment, I'll just go administrators have full access and all other users have read write. That'll do. Administrators, all other users have read only. So, because we've got NTFS permissions that limit people to what they're allowed to have access to anyway. So we'll just go like that. And we'll go next. The Enable 2008 mode just means that the namespace supports increased scalability and access-based enumeration. And it's going to be a domain base, so it's going to be registered in an Active Directory. You can have a standalone, but again, single point of failure, not much point to it really. So we're going to go next. So here you can see the namespace is called the domain name / corp data. Okay, so it doesn't refer to a particular server, it's the domain / namespace. Create it. Close. So here's our namespace. And underneath this, we're going to have, we're going to create a directory. So the namespace servers in here shows you that it's the main server is the namespace server. So right mouse click under that, we're going to go new folder. And I'm going to call this wallpapers. Okay, now the folder targets. Now this is the fun part. I'm going to add, browse the wallpaper share. There it is. But I'm going to add a second one because that's on main server. I want the backup server as well. Browse. But instead of being the main server, I want the backup server. Find now. I want the backup server. But there's no shared folders on the backup server, so I'm going to create a new shared folder. And I'm going to call this So I'm going to call that back. This is the share name, isn't it? Backup wallpapers. The local name of this is, I'm going to browse and I'm going to go to drive M, which is the mirrored drive, and I'm going to make a new folder on the mirrored drive, and I'm going to call this wallpapers, like that. And that's the one selected. I'm going to go OK. So it's M wallpapers on the backup server. I'm actually going to change that back to just wallpapers. That'll do. So it'll have a share called wallpapers as well. So in this one, I'll just click the same thing here. So now we've got a new shared folder on the backup, and that's our new target. So now I've got two targets. I've got one on the main server and one on the backup server. We've just created this share. So I'm going to go OK on that. And it says a replication group can be used to synchronize the folder targets of the folder you just created. Do you want to create a replication group? And yes, we do. The following folder targets cannot be added as DFS replication members. Click details for more details. The DFS replication service is not installed on that server. Okay. It's still got the, okay, so we do need to install the DFS replication service on here. Anyway, so let's go to, to add roles and features. Next, next, next. Because it was causing problems. So this is on the backup server. We also need to install the DFS replication stuff. Come on. And the reason why I'm using multiple targets is because in here it says the correct folder targets, like as in plural. So okay, this is taking a little while. Okay, so we're going to expand out the file and storage services file, and we're going to click on the DFS namespace and also the DFS replication and go next, next, install. And it's a matter of waiting until this is finished so that we can actually set up the proper replication in here. We're going to have to do it manually now because the wizard failed. because it didn't have the DFS service installed on the backup server. But that's okay. So in here we just go new replication group. And it'll run the replication wizard the same as it would have done before. So we've got installation started. Okay, so we can see that the installation has succeeded on the backup server for DFS replication and namespaces. Okay. So back to our main server, what we need to do is add that replication group in. Multi-purpose replication group. Actually, I'll exit that and see if I can get the wallpapers. Replicate folder. Okay, so this is creating the replication group. This is the replicate folder wizard, replication group and replication folder name. So it's picked up the wallpapers. That's the replicated folder name. So that's the domain, the namespace, and then the folder under the namespace. We're going to add the backup and the main server as DFS replication members. I'm going to set the primary member as the main server. So I'll just go previous. The reason why I did that is if the folders already contained information in them, if it already exists on multiple servers, then the folders and files on the primary member will be the authoritative during the initial replication. So the first time the replication happens, the files are in the main server will take precedence over any of the other shared folders. We want a full mesh, so every single server in the topology. We want the full bandwidth. We can schedule this to only happen at certain times of the day. To be effective, I think full bandwidth replicate continuously using the specified bandwidth. You can set, a specific bandwidth if you want to, but honestly just give it full. So that's a summary, go create it. It was all successful. Close. So it says replication will not begin until the configuration is picked up by the members of the replication group. The amount of time this takes depends on Active Directory domain services replication latency as well as the polling interval. So don't need to show that again. So now you can see that I've actually got a wallpapers replication group that points to both servers, and they're allowed up to 4 GB of staging or caching. Now you can create a diagnostic report on this, and that's actually useful. So if I do a health report on the wallpapers folder, they're the two members that are included. Just go next, create it. I think it pulls it up in Internet Explorer. No, we can do it in Chrome. That's good. Always use that to open HTML. That's good. So we got one DFS replication warning, and I can't see it. It's probably made to work with Internet Explorer. Okay, main server. Well, that graphics is shit. So let's kill that. Create the diagnostic report again, health report. Backup server, the reference member will be the main server. Damn. Because I told it that to always do it. Can I open this thing? I can. So if I go Control C and open this up in Internet Explorer, don't use recommended settings, ask me later. This is just to see whether, yeah, look at that. It's designed to work in Internet Explorer. Restricted this web page from running ActiveX, allow blocked content. Okay. So these things here are not coming up in Chrome. So, interesting. Okay, so errors, 0 servers with errors, 1 warning. The main server, DFS replication service is restarting frequently. All servers are reporting. Backup server, or no errors to report, no warnings to report. Information, state says that it's running, uptime is 6 minutes. Gives you a bit of an idea of sizes and free spaces and all that other sort of stuff. And replication bandwidth settings, and then the main server as well. 1 warning. So DFS replication restarting frequently, 3 times in the past 7 days. So, you know, 3 times in 7 days, not an issue, considering we've just been setting it up. So that's not something to worry about. Okay, so we can kill both of those. So there's our DFS. So what does that actually mean? What does the DFS actually mean? Now, create the main directories in the correct volume share, install the DFS, create the directory structure where the namespaces are with the correct folder targets. So we need to take a screen capture of all of this. So here, wallpapers, and show this sort of thing. So I'm going to go I can see the folder targets, replicated folders, enabled. So that, I mean, I can just show those targets, but it's better to show the replications because it shows the targets and the fact that the replication's enabled. So I'm going to go Control E and save it. That's the printer going off in the background. Noisy thing. Okay, so we save that into our document here. Folder redirection settings. Yeah, folder redirection. Well, we've got a folder for redirection there, so I'm going to put it in with the directory structure configuration in here as well, because I think this folder and unauthorized and other GPO stuff really refers to point 6, which is systems, policies and scripts for configuring the user environment. So we've got a policy for folder redirection, preventing unauthorized access, network drive mapping, printer mapping, all that sort of stuff. Script for installing a application, that sort of thing. So I think that's all this part here. So I'm going to include the DFS stuff into the previous one in the directory structure configuration. So in here, after that, I'll put the DFS, insert, pictures, device, and pick the last one. And so here we can see the DFS stuff set up. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video at this point and continue with a supplementary video starting from this folder redirection, which is this 0.6 here. And this involves using the Windows 10 client, okay, and making sure that all this stuff gets set up and it gets applied to the Windows 10 client. So when they log in as a user, that their profile gets redirected back, that sort of thing. So we're up to the scripting side of stuff. Okay, so let's pause this video right here, and we'll come back and continue on in the next part 2 of this video.